My name is Iris Malloway, and I am 72 years old. I have lived in this house on the corner of Chestnut and Essex for almost 50 years. Every floorboard holds memories. Every crack in the ceiling has a story. Salem is a town with a complicated past, but it is here that I found my true home when I married Hugh Malloway in 1973. Now, as I sit in my chair by the window and watch the falling leaves of the maple tree that Hugh and I planted the year our son Noah was born, I often think about how my life has changed in the last 3 years since Hugh passed away. When Hugh's heart stopped one April morning, I thought things couldn't get any worse. I was wrong. It seems that the real trials were just beginning. Mom, are you sitting in the dark again? Noah's voice pulls me out of my thoughts. Quinn said you need more light so you don't ruin your eyesight. I turned to my son, noticing the shadows under his eyes and the new wrinkles on his forehead. At 45, he looks older, especially lately. I like looking out the window when the room is dark, I reply. And nothing can help my eyesight anymore except new glasses. Noah sighs, turning on the overhead light, which hurts my eyes. It's a small demonstration of power, but not his power. Quinn Ottaway Malloway, my sister-in-law. When Noah brought her to meet us 8 years ago, I tried to find something good in this woman. I didn't succeed. Behind her smile and perfect manicure was emptiness. No, that's not right. Behind them was calculation. The marriage was short and unhappy, but Hugh didn't live to see Quinn show her true colors. After his death, Noah and Quinn moved in with me, supposedly to help me cope with the loss. In reality, Quinn had simply set her sights on our house, a 3-story Victorian mansion with an attic built at the end of the 19th century. Real estate prices in Salem's historic district have skyrocketed, and the house Hugh and I bought for a song is now worth a fortune. Quinn and I are going to a restaurant tonight, Noah says, avoiding my gaze. We'll be back late. Okay, honey. I nod, even though I know they're not going to a restaurant. Quinn has a meeting today with her sister Sharon, whom she despises with every fiber of her black soul, but continues to maintain a relationship with because of her connections in legal circles. Sharon works for a large law firm, and her husband has some connections with the city administration. I know this because Quinn left her phone in the living room last night, and I saw the messages. It's not that I was deliberately spying. The screen just lit up with notifications as I walked by. 40 years as a court stenographer taught me to notice details and never miss important information. I could transcribe the most complex legal discussions without a single mistake, catching every word, every intonation. Those skills didn't disappear when I retired. Now I use them to protect myself. Because I need protection. Ever since Noah and Quinn moved in, my house has ceased to be mine. At first, the changes were subtle. My things were misplaced. My habits were ridiculed as senile quirks. My preferences were ignored. Then Quinn began a more overt campaign to drive me out of my own home. Iris, that vase is awful. It doesn't fit with the overall style, Quinn said, removing the vase Hugh gave me for our 20th anniversary from the mantelpiece. Who even uses paper calendars anymore? It's the Stone Age, she snorted, tearing down my wall calendar where I marked important dates and appointments. Mom, don't you think your porcelain figurine collection takes up too much space? Noah asked in Quinn's voice, even though the glass display case with the collection stood in the corner of the living room and didn't bother anyone. Gradually, my house was turning into a foreign space. The antique furniture that Hugh and I had collected from antique shops all over New England was being replaced by modern faceless items from catalogs. The walls, once decorated with family photos and paintings by local artists, were now empty or hung with abstract canvases that Quinn called contemporary art. I moved to the second floor, to my bedroom, creating a small island of my former life there. But even there, Quinn intruded, doing a spring cleaning in my absence and rearranging things so that it was impossible to find anything afterwards. I didn't understand her plan right away. At first, I thought it was just a capricious character or a desire to dominate. But about a year ago, when I accidentally overheard a conversation between Quinn and her mother Laura, I realized the true extent of the disaster. Yes, Mom, the old woman is strong, unfortunately, Quinn said, thinking I had left for a book club meeting. But Noah and I have already consulted about a nursing home. There's a good option in Peabody that's not too expensive. Once we get everything sorted out, the house will be completely ours. From that day on, I started keeping records. Not a diary. Quinn would surely find it and read it. I created a password-protected folder on my phone where I recorded everything that was happening. Photos of my belongings before and after Quinn's intervention. Recordings of conversations when I managed to secretly turn on the voice recorder. Screenshots of strange text messages I saw on my sister-in-law's phone. Gradually, the picture became more and more frightening. Quinn didn't just want to outlive me. She was methodically destroying my relationship with my son, manipulating him and isolating me from the outside world. "Why do you need to see this, Pearl?" she would say to Noah after I returned from visiting my friend. "She's clearly a bad influence on your mother. Look how agitated she is when she comes back." Pearl Tibbets had been my best friend since college. She had worked for the Salem Police Department for 35 years, rising to the rank of detective before retiring. Her sharp mind, caustic humor, and complete lack of sentimentality made her the perfect conversation partner for me. Pearl was the first to notice that something was wrong in my relationship with Quinn and Noah. "Iris, my dear," she said during our meeting at the Witch's Cauldron Cafe last month. Pearl loved the irony of Salem's names. "Your sister-in-law is more dangerous than she seems. I've seen people like her when I worked in the fraud department. Sweet, smiling women who fleeced gullible old people and then disappeared into the sunset." "But what should I do, Pearl?" I asked, stirring my cold coffee. "This is my home, but I feel like an uninvited guest here." "And Noah." I paused, searching for the right words. "And Noah has always been soft-hearted," Pearl finished for me. "Just like his father, may he rest in peace. Hugh wasn't a fighter either, although, unlike his son, he at least had some principles." I didn't argue. It was a bitter truth. Hugh was kind and caring, but he never knew how to stand up to strong personalities. Noah inherited this trait in an exaggerated form, adding to it an amazing ability to overlook the obvious. "Listen to me carefully." Pearl leaned across the table toward me. "Keep gathering information. Write it down, take pictures, save it, and always stay one step ahead. You never know when you'll need an ace up your sleeve." Following her advice, I became even more attentive. And what I discovered while observing Quinn and her family turned out to be more interesting than I could have imagined. Her brother Reed, who had come to visit last month and stayed overnight, secretly took a silver box that had belonged to my grandmother from the house. I took a photo of him hiding it in the trunk of his car, and then another one of an ad on the website of an antique shop in Boston, where the same box was listed for sale a week later. I overheard Quinn discussing some kind of tax fraud with her cousin Bridget. I recorded the conversation, and dozens more like it. My collection of compromising material was growing, but I didn't know how or when to use it. It was like gathering weapons for a war that was inevitable, but whose hour had not yet come. Meanwhile, Quinn continued her offensive. She began inviting her relatives to the house, a noisy, boisterous crowd who behaved as if I were not the hostess, but some museum relic accidentally left in a display case. "Aunt Iris, you're so authentic," Quinn's niece Piper said to me one day, looking at me as if I were an exhibit at an antique show. "Just Iris, dear," I corrected her. "I'm not your aunt." The girl looked embarrassed, and Quinn gave me a withering look. Later that evening, I heard her hiss at Noah. "Your mother is unbearable. She insulted Piper." "I'm sure she didn't mean to," my son defended her weakly. "Of course she did. She does everything she can to ruin our lives. How long can we put up with this?" Noah muttered something indistinctly, and the conversation died down. But I knew this was only the beginning. Quinn was fired up with an idea, and that idea was simple: get rid of me at any cost. The next day, as I was going downstairs for breakfast, I heard Quinn talking on the phone from the kitchen. "Yes, Sharon, I'll arrange everything. It will be a big party. I'll introduce you to people from the Historical Society. They have influence." "What?" "No, it won't be. Don't worry. We'll have this problem solved by then." I froze on the stairs, listening to every word. It was undoubtedly me, and solve this problem in Quinn's vocabulary could only mean one thing. Back in my room, I took out my phone and added a new entry to my folder. October 16th, 9:30 a.m. Quinn plans to get rid of me before some party. Mentioned Sharon and the Historical Society. I had to prepare for the worst. Pearl always said, hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And I was going to follow that advice. That day, I went into town, ostensibly to do some shopping, but really to visit a lawyer. Mr. Pratt was old school and had known me since my days working in the courtroom. He listened carefully to my story, asking rare but precise questions. Mrs. Malloway, he finally said, folding his hands in his lap. Legally, the house belongs to you, and no one can force you to leave it. However, he paused. If your son and his wife really intend to have you declared incompetent, it could complicate the situation. Incompetent? I felt a chill inside. Do you think they would go that far? Based on what you've told me, they are methodically creating an image of an elderly woman with declining health and memory, isolating you from friends, controlling your medication, making sure you don't overexert yourself. It's a classic pattern. I remembered how Quinn helped me sort my pills by day of the week, even though I was perfectly capable of doing it myself. How she worried about my blood pressure every time I expressed dissatisfaction. How thoughtfully she offered to take me to the doctor when I couldn't find my glasses, which she herself had misplaced. What should I do, Mr. Pratt? Continue to document everything and be prepared to take decisive action when the time comes. Leaving his office, I felt a strange sense of calm. Now I had a plan. I was no longer a helpless victim. That evening when I got home, I discovered that Quinn had moved my favorite photos of Hugh from the living room to the storage room, replacing them with her own portraits and photos of her family. Instead of making a scene, I silently photographed the changes and saved them in my folder. When Noah came home from work, I gently asked him, "Son, do you know where your father's photos have gone?" He looked around in confusion, as if he had only just noticed the changes. I didn't notice. Quinn must have decided to rearrange things. Rearranging is when you change the order of things. This is more like replacing, I remarked, trying to sound calm. Mom, please! Noah ran his hand over his face. Let's not start. Quinn just wants the house to look more modern. This house holds our family history, Noah. Your family. Or would you rather forget it? No one forgets anything, he looked away. Things just change. Life goes on. Yes, life goes on, I agreed. But that doesn't mean we have to erase the past. Noah didn't answer, just shrugged and went into the kitchen, where Quinn was loudly clattering dishes, pretending to make dinner. I went upstairs to my room, took an old photo album out of its hiding place, and stared for a long time at a picture of Hugh, little Noah, and me standing on the porch of this very house. Happy, smiling, a real family. Now all that remained of that family were memories. And the house, which was gradually becoming alien to me. But I wasn't going to give up without a fight. Quinn didn't know who she was dealing with yet. In 72 years, I had survived the loss of my parents, the death of my husband, and seen ups and downs, joys and sorrows. I survived then, and I would survive now. That evening, I sent Pearl a message. It looks like a storm is coming. Stay in touch. Her reply was brief. Always in touch. And remember, every storm has an eye. Find it, and you'll be safe. I smiled. Pearl always knew how to cheer me up. And she was right. I needed to find the eye of this storm, the center of calm in the looming chaos. And I knew where to look for it. In my determination to protect what was rightfully mine, my home, my life, my dignity. I understand that I need to write the second chapter, approximately 10,000 characters without spaces. Here's an abridged version. The morning was damp, with that special October dampness that chills you to the bone. Quinn's clear voice came from the first floor. She was talking on the phone with her sister Sharon, and her tone was sweeter than molasses. My only sister's birthday is a special occasion. I want to do something really memorable. No, we'll organize everything here at home. You know how spacious and atmospheric it is, and the old woman, her voice became conspiratorial. Don't worry about her. We'll have that sorted out by then. Yes, I've already spoken to the director of Pine Grove. There's a place available, and all the formalities are almost settled. We just need your husband to help with the paperwork. Quinn laughed. She has no idea. She thinks she'll live in this house until the end of her days. Pine Grove is a nursing home in the suburbs of Salem. I quietly closed the door and returned to my room. My hands were shaking with anger. So that's what this schemer has planned, to send me to a nursing home. I took out my phone and recorded what I had heard, adding the date and time. Then I checked the folder with compromising material. Over the past few months, I had amassed an impressive collection. Photos of Quinn's brother Reed carrying my belongings out of the house. A recording of Quinn discussing with his cousin how best to get their hands on my jewelry. Screenshots of messages from Sharon about the house documents. The most valuable was a recently intercepted email from Laura, Quinn's mother, where she spoke directly about the need to get rid of the old woman and secure the rights to the property. I accidentally saw it on Quinn's laptop screen when she went to get coffee. Of course, I took a photo. It was time to act. But first, I needed to consult with Pearl. I quickly got ready and went downstairs. Quinn was standing in front of the mirror in the hall, fixing her makeup. "Iris, are you going somewhere?" In this weather? Her voice sounded feigned concern. "Yes, dear. I have to meet with Pearl. We're going to discuss a new book for our club. But it's so damp outside. You could catch a cold, and at your age, any cold is dangerous. At my age, the only thing dangerous is letting others tell me what to do." Quinn's eyes narrowed. For a moment, her mask of politeness slipped, revealing her true face, cold and malicious. But she quickly regained her composure. "Come now, I'm just concerned about your health. And Noah is worried too. You mean so much to us." The witch's cauldron greeted me with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and cinnamon. Pearl was already waiting at our usual table by the window. At 75, she looked younger than me, fit, with short-cropped gray hair and a piercing gaze that, after 35 years of police service, had learned to see right through people. "You look like you're ready to kill someone," she remarked instead of saying hello. "What is it this time?" I told her about the conversation I had overheard. Pearl listened without interrupting, only taking occasional sips from her mug. "Pine Grove, huh? Interesting. I have a nurse friend there, Doran. I can find out if they're really preparing a place for you." "It's not about the place, Pearl. It's about the fact that they want to take my house away from me." "I know, but we need proof of their intentions. Not guesswork, not overheard snippets of conversation, but hard facts." "What do you have besides this conversation?" I took out my phone and showed her my collection. Pearl studied each file carefully, sometimes humming, sometimes shaking her head. "Not bad, Iris. You'd make a great detective. This is especially valuable." She pointed to the email from Laura. "Direct confirmation of their plans. But we need more, and we need a plan of action." "What plan?" I asked, feeling my resolve grow. "I'm not going to let that upstart send me to a nursing home." "Of course not," Pearl smiled, and there was something predatory about her smile. "You're going to give her enough rope to hang herself." "What do you mean?" "They're planning some kind of party, right? A sister's birthday or something like that." "When?" "I'm not sure, but from what I've heard, it's soon." "Okay, we need to find out the exact date, and we need to figure out who will be there, especially from her family." We spent the next hour organizing the information we had. I had photos of Reed with the stolen silver box. On Laura, I had an email with direct threats. On Sharon, I had evidence of her involvement in questionable legal schemes. "What about Bridget?" Pearl asked. "I have a recording of her discussing some kind of scam with Quinn." I found the file and played the recording. "Listen, this is the perfect option," Quinn's voice said. "You get a job at the foundation, gain access to the accounts, and we—" "I don't know, Quinn," another voice interrupted her. "This isn't just tax fraud, it's grand fraud. If we get caught, we won't get caught. Sharon has everything covered. Her husband has connections in the right places." Pearl whistled. "Wow, this is serious. If they're planning to steal from a charity, that's a federal crime." "I'm not sure if they've actually carried out the plan," I admitted. "It doesn't matter. The fact that they're discussing such a scheme says a lot about them. So here's what I think. We need to find out the exact date of the party, and we need to prepare for it. You'll have to look as harmless as possible." "And then?" "And then we'll surprise them," Pearl smiled. "I have a couple of ideas, But first, let's find out all the details of their plan. When I got home, I found Quinn in the kitchen. She was typing something on her laptop and quickly closed the lid when she saw me. Oh, Iris, you're back. How was your meeting with your friend? Wonderful, dear. Pearl always knows how to cheer me up. Glad to hear it. By the way, I wanted to talk to you. It's Sharon's birthday soon, and Noah and I were thinking of throwing a small party here at the house. Nothing fancy, just family and a couple of close friends. What a wonderful idea. When are you planning it? Next Saturday, the 23rd. We thought it would be a good opportunity to get out and about a little. Of course, I'd love to see Sharon and the others. Quinn's face tensed slightly. Actually, Iris, we thought it might be tiring for you to participate in all of this. The noise, the commotion. At your age, it might be too much. Oh, don't worry about me. I can easily sit with the guests for an hour or two. After all, it's my house, and I'd be a poor hostess if I didn't welcome my guests. Quinn clearly hadn't expected that answer. She bit her lip, thinking feverishly. But you said it was difficult for you to be in noisy company. Remember, at Christmas you went to your room in the middle of dinner because you were tired. That was different, dear. I really wasn't feeling well then. But now I'm in great shape. Besides, I haven't seen Sharon in so long. It will be nice to chat with her. I saw a flicker of concern in Quinn's eyes. The plan was clearly not going according to script. Well, if you insist. By the way, who else have you invited besides Sharon? Well, Reed will be there, of course. And Mom. Bridget will probably be there too, and a couple of Sharon's friends from the law firm. Sounds wonderful. I'm so glad our house will be full of guests again. Hugh always loved having people over. Yes, of course, Quinn said, standing up and glancing pointedly at her watch. Oh, I have to run. I have a meeting in half an hour. Left alone, I allowed myself to smile. Quinn was clearly nervous. That meant I was on the right track. I sent a message to Pearl. Party on Saturday, the 23rd. All the key players are invited. Quinn tried to convince me not to attend. The reply came almost instantly. Great! Now we have a date. See you tomorrow at the usual place at 2. I have a plan. Noah came home that evening. He looked tired and preoccupied. I made his favorite lasagna, and we sat down to eat together. Mom, Noah began, not looking me in the eye. Quinn said she talked to you about the party. Yes, it's a wonderful idea. I've always loved having guests. The thing is, Quinn is worried that it will be too tiring for you to participate in all of this. You know how noisy her relatives can be. Noah, I'm 72, not 92. I'm perfectly capable of handling one evening in the company of a few people. I know, but Quinn thinks it would be better for you to rest somewhere quiet that day. Maybe at a spa hotel or a nursing home? I finished for him, not hiding my sarcasm. Noah flinched as if he had been struck. What? No. Why would you say that? Because I'm not blind or deaf, son. I can see what's going on in my own house. The rest of dinner passed in a relatively calm atmosphere. We reminisced about the past and talked about Hugh. For a brief moment, I felt like my son was with me again, not against me. But the illusion was shattered when Quinn returned. The next day, I met with Pearl again. We discussed a plan of action, thinking through every detail. On the day of the party, you need to stay in the shadows. Let them think you don't suspect anything, but be prepared for them to try to isolate you. Do you think they would go that far? They've already gone far enough, Pearl replied seriously, and I don't think they'll stop at anything to get your house. What should I do if they try to lock me up? First, don't panic. Second, keep your phone with you at all times, not in your bag, but in your dress pocket. And third, Pearl took a small device out of her bag. This. What is it? A small beacon. It works via GPS and shows your location. I'll track it through a special app. Do you really think this is necessary? Better safe than sorry, Pearl said firmly. These people have already shown that they are capable of a lot. In the days leading up to the party, I kept a close eye on Quinn and Noah. Quinn spent a lot of time on her phone. Once, as I was walking past her office, I heard her talking about transfer documents. Yes, all the papers are ready. The old woman won't be able to prove anything, even if she tries. The key word here is incapacity. If we do everything right, she won't even be able to go to court. A chill ran down my spine. They weren't just planning to send me to a nursing home, they wanted to have me declared incapacitated. This explained why Quinn had been so concerned about my health in recent months, constantly reminding me about my pills, about appointments I was supposedly late for, about things I supposedly lost. She was methodically creating the image of an old woman with dementia. On Friday evening, the night before the party, I went up to my room early, claiming I was tired. In reality, I needed to prepare. I checked my phone, fully charged, all files in place. I laid out my clothes for tomorrow, a modest dark blue dress that made me less noticeable. I prepared the beacon from Pearl. Sitting by the window, I watched the twilight descend on the garden. Tomorrow, many things would be decided. Before going to bed, I called Pearl. Is everything ready? Yes. My phone is charged. I have the beacon with me. All the evidence is gathered. Excellent. I'll be on call all day. If anything goes wrong, call me immediately. Thank you, Pearl. I don't know what I would do without you. The same thing you're doing now, Pearl smiled. You're stronger than you think, Iris, and smarter than they give you credit for. Tomorrow was supposed to be the day of reckoning. The day Quinn would realize that the old Iris Malloway was not a woman to be easily fooled. The morning of October 23rd was cold and clear, with that special autumn light that transforms even the most ordinary objects, giving them a golden glow. I woke up early before sunrise and lay in bed for a long time, mentally rehearsing the day ahead. Sounds came from the first floor. Quinn was already up, giving orders to the caterers and decorators. I could hear her commanding voice, periodically rising to an irritated shriek when something didn't go according to plan. No, not there! The table should be by the window. And how many times do I have to say it? White lilies, not these. What are these anyway? Freesias? I asked for lilies. I smiled. Quinn was clearly nervous, and that worked in my favor. Nervous people make mistakes. I took my time getting dressed, choosing a modest dark blue dress with long sleeves, perfect for the image of a quiet elderly lady. I deliberately didn't put on any makeup, allowing my wrinkles to show in all their glory. The more fragile and defenseless I looked, the easier it would be to catch Quinn off guard. After checking my phone, fully charged, all files in place, I put it in my dress pocket. Then, leaning on my cane more heavily than I actually needed to, I slowly made my way downstairs. The living room was unrecognizable. All my things had been removed or moved to make room for glass tables with snacks and drinks. The walls, which yesterday had held photos of Hugh and our family, were now decorated with modern abstract paintings, obviously rented for the event. Quinn darted between the kitchen and the living room, checking every detail. When she saw me, she froze, her face contorting into a grimace which she immediately tried to turn into a smile. Iris, you're up already. How did you sleep? Wonderfully, dear, I replied with my most friendly smile. Our living room is so beautiful. So many changes. Yes, I tried to create a modern, elegant atmosphere. Quinn was clearly pleased with the compliment. The guests will start arriving around 5 in the evening, but before that we'll have a small family gathering. Sharon and Reed will arrive early. Wonderful! I'll be happy to see them. Quinn frowned as if she had just remembered a problem she couldn't solve. Actually, Iris, I wanted to discuss your participation with you again. After all, this day is meant for young people. It will be noisy. There will be a lot of people. I'm concerned about your health. Oh, don't worry. I patted her hand with the condescension she hated so much. At my age, there aren't many entertainments. I'll be happy to watch the festivities, even from a distance. Quinn's face froze, but she restrained herself. As you wish, she said through clenched teeth. Just don't tire yourself out too much. With that, she returned to her chores, and I headed to the kitchen to make myself a cup of tea. There I found Noah sitting at the table, buried in his laptop. Good morning, son, I said as I approached him and kissed him on the top of his head, as I used to do when he was little. He flinched and turned around. Mom, good morning, you look good. Thank you, dear, although we both know that's not true. Noah smiled weakly. He seemed tense, even frightened. Today's a big day, huh? He said, closing his laptop. Quinn's so excited. I understand. Your sister's birthday is an important event. Noah gave me a strange look. Yes, exactly. Sharon's birthday. Something in his tone made me wary. Did he know that the celebration was just a pretext? Or was he part of the plan himself? Before I could say anything else, Quinn burst into the kitchen. Noah, are you still here? You need to pick up the cake from the bakery before noon. I remember, Noah sighed, getting up. I'm leaving now. And don't forget to pick up Reed at the airport. His plane lands at 11:30. I won't forget, Noah said, grabbing his car keys and jacket. We'll be back around 1 eye. After he left, Quinn turned to me, her gaze appraising, as if she were assessing how much I might interfere with her plans. Iris, I was thinking, maybe you'd like to relax today after all. I have a friend who works at a wonderful spa. One phone call and you could spend the whole day there. On me, of course. Thank you, dear, but I'd rather stay home. As I said, I'm interested in meeting your relatives. Besides, this is my home and I'd be a bad hostess if I missed such an event. Quinn pressed her lips into a thin line. As you say, then maybe you could help. Lay out the napkins or something like that? I'd be happy to. I spent the next few hours pretending to help with the preparations, but really watching Quinn and assessing the situation. The house gradually filled with people, caterers, florists, musicians. By noon, everything was almost ready. At 1 o'clock, Noah returned with Reed. Quinn's brother was a tall, muscular man with the same cold stare as his sister. He barely nodded to me in greeting before disappearing into the study with Quinn for an important conversation. I took the opportunity to check my phone and send a message to Pearl. Everything is going according to plan. Reed has arrived, waiting for the others. Pearl replied instantly. Keep me posted. I'm ready to come at the first signal. By 3 o'clock, Sharon and her husband had arrived, along with Laura, Quinn's mother. The living room was filled with fake exclamations of joy and feigned embraces. I watched this performance from my seat in the corner without interfering. Sharon was the complete opposite of her sister. Tall, with dark hair and a sharp gaze, she looked like the successful lawyer she was. Her husband, Jerry, was an unremarkable man with a keen gaze and a perpetual half-smile. Laura, an elegant woman in an expensive suit, looked like a more mature version of Quinn, with the same calculating expression. Iris, Sharon approached me, extending her hand. It's good to see you. How's your health? Not complaining, dear. I shook her hand. I'm in great shape for my age. Glad to hear it. Sharon glanced quickly at Quinn. We're all so worried about you. Oh, there's no need for that. I take good care of myself. Quinn approached us, her smile not reaching her eyes. Sharon, dear, let's go to the study. We need to discuss something before the other guests arrive. They left, leaving me with Laura and Jerry. Laura gave me a look that revealed her poorly concealed contempt. Quinn said you haven't been feeling very well lately, she said. Something to do with your memory, if I understand correctly? Quinn is exaggerating, I smiled. My memory is fine. I remember everything, every little detail. Laura laughed nervously, clearly unsure how to respond to my answer. Well, in any case, it's wonderful that Noah and Quinn care about you. At your age, support is so important. Indeed, although sometimes that care can be excessive, I said, looking at her meaningfully. Laura paled and quickly walked away, muttering something about needing to check on the appetizers. Around 4 o'clock, everyone gathered in the office. I noticed Reed bringing in a folder with some documents. Through the half-open door, I heard snippets of conversation, something about signing, formalities, and resolving the issue. I didn't eavesdrop any further so as not to arouse suspicion. Instead, I settled in the living room, watching the final preparations for the party. The catering staff arranged the appetizers, the bartender set up his bar, and the musicians tuned their instruments. At 4:30, everyone left the office. Quinn looked excited, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. She said something quickly to Reed and he nodded, glancing in my direction. Iris? Quinn approached me with a fake smile. I need to show you something in the kitchen. Could you come with me? I knew it was a trap, but I decided to go along with their plan for the time being. Leaning on my cane, I got up and followed Quinn to the kitchen. Reed quietly followed us. In the kitchen, Quinn stopped at a large pantry with the door open. Look what I found, she said, pointing inside. Looks like some old photo albums. They were hidden behind some flour sacks. I looked at her skeptically. Photo albums in a pantry and behind bags of flour? But I decided to play along. Really? Let me see. I took a step into the pantry. At that moment, Quinn pushed me inside and Reed slammed the door shut. I heard the lock click. Quinn! I knocked on the door. What are you doing? Open up immediately. I'm sorry, Iris, but this is for the best. Quinn's voice sounded from the other side of the door, filled with false regret. You are clearly not in a state to participate in such an event. You will only upset the guests with your condition. I heard Reed chuckle. A scarecrow like you won't get in the way of our fun, Quinn added, no longer pretending. Sit here quietly until we're done, and then we'll all go to a wonderful place where they'll take better care of you than we do. Pine Grove, I clarified calmly. Silence fell behind the door. What? Quinn finally managed to say. How did you... I know about your plans, Quinn, about Pine Grove, the house documents, and everything else. Nonsense. Her voice no longer sounded so confident. You don't know anything, and no one will believe you. You're just a crazy old woman. Is that so? I smiled, even though they couldn't see it. Well, we'll see. Let's go, Reed, Quinn said. The guests will be arriving soon. I heard their footsteps receding. Left alone, I looked around. The pantry was quite spacious, with shelves filled with jars, boxes, and bags. In the far corner stood an old wooden chair. Apparently, someone sometimes sat here sorting food. I sat down on the chair and took out my phone. The first thing I did was send a message to Pearl. I'm locked in the pantry, starting the operation. The reply came instantly. I'm on my way. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Hang in there. Then I opened a group chat I had created earlier with Quinn's relatives. Everyone was there. Sharon and Jerry, Laura, Reed, Cousin Bridget, who was supposed to arrive later, and of course Noah. I started with a simple message. Good evening, everyone. This is Iris Malloway. I'd like to share some information with you that may be of interest. Then I started sending files, one for each of them. For Reed, photos of him carrying my silver box out of the house and a screenshot of the ad for its sale at an antique shop. For Sharon, a recording of her discussing questionable legal schemes with Quinn and a screenshot of her advising how to properly draw up the documents for my house. For Laura, her own email where she explicitly talks about the need to get rid of the old woman and secure the rights to the property. For Bridget, a recording where she discusses a plan with Quinn to steal from a charity fund. And finally, for Noah, a complete collection of all of the above, plus a recording of a conversation where Quinn calls him a spineless idiot who is easy to manipulate and admits that she married him solely for the prospect of getting the house. After sending all the files, I added another message. Right now, I'm locked in the pantry of my own house. Quinn and Reed locked me in here, calling me a stuffed animal and saying I shouldn't interfere with their fun. After the party, they plan to take me to Pine Grove, a nursing home where I will be held against my will while they dispose of my property. If any of you have a conscience, please help me get out of here. I pressed send and waited. Nothing happened for several minutes. Then my phone started vibrating with incoming messages. Noah was the first to respond. Mom, what's going on? I'm coming to you right now. Then Sharon. This is some kind of mistake. I've never been involved in any illegal schemes. Iris, where did you get this recording? Laura sent a terse reply. This is fake. I'm suing you for defamation. Reed didn't reply, but I could imagine his face when he saw the photos of the stolen box. I heard noise in the living room. It sounded like a scandal had broken out. Someone was shouting, someone was trying to explain something, someone was demanding answers. Then I heard quick footsteps heading toward the kitchen. The pantry door swung open and Noah appeared in the doorway. His face was pale, his eyes wide with shock. Mom! He rushed toward me. What did they do? Are you okay? I'm perfectly fine, son. I got up from the chair, no longer needing to feign weakness. But your wife and her relatives seem to have problems. We left the pantry and went into the kitchen where we ran into Quinn. She looked as if she had seen a ghost, pale, her eyes wide with horror. How did you... She stammered, unable to formulate the question. How did I find out about your plans? Or how I was able to send evidence of your conspiracy to all interested parties, even though I was locked up. Quinn was silent, shocked by what was happening. You see, dear, I continued, when you're 72, people often consider you helpless and stupid. That has certain advantages. For example, no one expects you to be able to use modern technology or to be alert enough to notice when you're being cheated. Noah looked from me to Quinn, as if he couldn't believe what was happening. Did you really plan to send my mother to a nursing home? He asked hoarsely, and take her house? Don't listen to her. Quinn suddenly found her voice. She made it all up. It's senile dementia, Noah. She doesn't even know what she's saying. What about the recordings, the letters, the photos? Are those made up too? Fakes! All of that can be easily faked with modern technology. At that moment, Sharon entered the kitchen. Her face was stone cold. Quinn, she said in an icy tone, have you been recording our conversations? What? No, it's her. Quinn pointed at me. She made it all up. Then where did she get the recording of our conversation about the Henderson case? Sharon crossed her arms over her chest. The one that could get me disbarred if it comes out? Quinn opened her mouth but didn't make a sound. I saw panic flash in her eyes. The plan was falling apart before my eyes. At that moment, a siren sounded outside. One of the guests who had already begun to arrive looked out the window in alarm. The police? An alarmed voice asked. Why are the police here? I smiled. Not exactly the police, I said. This is my friend Pearl, a former detective, and unlike some people, she really cares about my well-being. The front door swung open and Pearl entered the house, accompanied by a uniformed police officer. She quickly scanned the living room full of people frozen in shock and headed straight for the kitchen. Iris! She hugged me. Are you okay? I am now, I nodded. Thanks to you and my phone. Pearl turned to the others, her gaze settling on Quinn. And here's our kidnapper, she nodded to the police officer. Officer Baker, this woman forcibly detained my friend against her will, locking her in the pantry. That's not true, Quinn exclaimed. She went in there herself. And anyway, this is all a misunderstanding. As I understand it, Pearl continued calmly, this is part of a larger plan to deprive Iris Malloway of her property and illegally commit her to an institution against her will. Those are serious allegations, ma'am, Officer Baker said. Do you have any evidence? Oh, there's more than enough evidence, I said, showing him my phone. Recordings of conversations, emails, photos, everything is documented. Laura, who had been standing to one side until then, suddenly swayed and grabbed the wall. I don't feel well, she muttered before her eyes rolled back and she began to sink to the floor. Jerry, Sharon's husband, quickly caught her before she hit her head. She needs a doctor, he exclaimed. She's fainting. An ambulance has already been called, Pearl said calmly. But if I were you, I'd be more concerned about other problems. For example, the fact that everyone present is involved in attempted fraud and false imprisonment. Chaos reigned in the living room. Reed tried to slip out the back door unnoticed, but was stopped by a second police officer who had just entered. Sharon loudly demanded a lawyer. Jerry tried to revive Laura, and the other guests watched in horror. Quinn stood in the middle of it all, paralyzed, her face deathly pale. She looked at me with an expression that was a mixture of hatred, fear, and distrust. How could you? She whispered. You ruined everything. No, dear. I shook my head. You ruined everything. The moment you decided you could deceive old Iris Malloway and take what was rightfully hers. Noah stood next to me, his face a mixture of shock, shame, and remorse. Mom, his voice trembled, I didn't know. I never thought Quinn would. I know, son, I said, gently touching his hand. You just chose the wrong woman. It happens. Pearl put her arm around my shoulders, and together we watched the house of cards Quinn had so carefully built come crashing down. Her relatives turned away from her one by one, trying to save their own skins and blaming each other. And I felt a strange calm. I had protected my home, my life, my dignity. And I had done it with what Quinn considered my weakness, my age and supposed helplessness. How wrong she was. While Laura was being revived and Pearl was giving her statement to Officer Baker, I sat quietly in my favorite chair, watching Quinn's plans fall apart. My house was mine again, and no one dared call me a dummy or consider me a burden anymore. The living room had turned into a veritable battlefield. After Noah let me out of the pantry and Pearl arrived with the police, the chaos only intensified. My messages with compromising material had the effect of a bombshell, and now Quinn's relatives were hurling accusations at each other, forgetting the original purpose of the party. "You recorded our conversations?" Sharon's voice rang with rage as she stepped toward her sister. "Do you even realize that's illegal? If those recordings fall into the hands of the Bar Association, my career is over." "I didn't record anything," Quinn snapped, her face contorted with fear and anger. "It's all her fault." She pointed at me with a trembling finger. "That old woman somehow eavesdropped on us." "Did she eavesdrop on my email too?" Laura asked coldly, holding her phone as if it were a poisonous snake. "The one I sent you from my personal account to your personal account?" Laura stood by the fireplace, clutching the back of the chair as if it were a lifeline. Her usually flawless face looked aged, the mask of a socialite cracked, revealing confusion and fear. "Mom, I can explain," Quinn began, but Laura interrupted her. "Explain what? That you dragged us all into your crazy plan? That because of you, we all look like accomplices to a crime now? What crime are you talking about?" asked Officer Baker, a young policeman with a serious face who had arrived with Pearl. He stood at the door, watching closely and taking notes in a small notebook. "Attempted fraud, unlawful imprisonment, and document forgery," Pearl replied calmly, although I knew she was seething with indignation inside. "This woman," she pointed to Quinn, "locked my friend in a storage room and planned to forcibly place her in a nursing home to take possession of her property." "That's a lie," Quinn exclaimed, but her voice trembled, betraying her uncertainty. "She has no evidence." "Iris, show the officer what you sent me," Pearl suggested. I approached Officer Baker, holding my phone in my hand. "It's all here," I said, opening the folder with the evidence. Recordings of conversations, photos, screenshots of correspondence. I'd been collecting them for several months, ever since I first heard that they were planning to get rid of me. The officer took the phone and began looking through the files. His eyebrows rose higher and higher as he familiarized himself with the contents. "This is very convincing," he finally said. "Mrs. Malloway, do you wish to press formal charges?" I glanced around the room. Quinn stood with her shoulders slumped, as if all the air had suddenly been let out of her. Noah looked at his wife as if he were seeing her for the first time, a mixture of shock, disgust, and incomprehension on his face. Reed shifted nervously from foot to foot by the window, clearly considering his escape route. Sharon and her husband Jerry huddled in a corner, whispering about something, probably discussing the legal implications. Laura looked as if she had aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. "I want the truth to come out," I replied to the officer. "Not just for me, but for everyone here, especially for my son." At that moment, Reed decided it was the right time to make his escape. He took a few steps toward the exit, but Pearl blocked his way. "Going somewhere, Mr. Ottovy?" she asked with that particular intonation that gave her away as a former detective. "I have a meeting," Reed muttered, not looking her in the eye. "An important meeting. More important than explaining why you stole and sold the Mallow family heirlooms?" Pearl nodded toward my phone in the officer's hands. "There are some very interesting photos of you there." Reed's face paled. "I didn't. It was a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" It was Noah's voice, and I was surprised to hear a steal in it that wasn't usually there. "You call stealing your grandfather's silver box a misunderstanding?" Reed backed away, bumping his back against the wall. "Quinn said your mother wants me to take it. She said you were going to get rid of the old stuff anyway." "What?" Quinn gasped. "I never said that. You took it yourself." "Liar!" Reed took a step toward his sister, his face contorted with rage. "You're setting me up, like always." "Me?" Quinn let out a hysterical laugh. "Who promised to help with the paperwork for the nursing home and then dragged his feet for months? Who demanded more and more money for every service? Because your plans were getting crazier and more dangerous." Reed defended himself. At first, you said you just wanted the old woman to move in with other relatives. Then you said you were going to convince her to sell the house and split the money. And now you're planning to lock her up in Pine Grove and forge the documents for the house. You're out of your mind. Don't you dare accuse me. Quinn was already hysterical. It was everyone's idea. You all supported me. You all wanted your share. That phrase made the others sit up and take notice. I never agreed to any illegal actions, Sharon said coldly. I only advised you on legal matters. Oh, sure, Quinn laughed bitterly. And who said if we do it right, the old woman will never be able to prove that the house belonged to her? Who suggested forging her signature on the deed? Sharon turned pale. I never said anything about forging documents. No? Quinn took out her phone and began feverishly scrolling through her messages. Then what's this? If it's not possible to get a real signature, you can use an electronic version from old documents. Your words, Sharon? Jerry, Sharon's husband, looked at his wife in shock. Did you really write that? Sharon was silent, her face frozen into a mask. It was a hypothetical scenario, she finally blurted out. I never suggested actually doing it. Don't make a fool of me, Quinn exploded. You knew why I needed this information. You all knew, and you all wanted your share. Meanwhile, in another corner of the living room, Noah stood watching the scene with an expression of utter horror. His world was falling apart before his eyes. The wife he loved turned out to be a con artist who planned to get rid of his mother and steal the family fortune. And her family, whom he had always considered a little strange but generally decent, had now shown their true colors. I walked over to my son and gently touched his hand. Noah, I said quietly. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. He turned to me and I saw tears in his eyes. Mom, I swear I didn't know. I didn't know anything about their plans. I believe you, I replied sincerely. You've always been too trusting. How could she? He whispered, looking at Quinn, who continued to yell at her family. How could she plan something like this? And behind my back? Greed blinds people, I squeezed his hand. She only saw the house and the money she could get, not the person. Our conversation was interrupted by the doorbell. Officer Baker, who had been watching the scene and taking notes, went to answer it. An elegant, middle-aged woman in a strict suit entered the house. She was accompanied by a serious-looking man who stood slightly behind her. Maureen? Quinn gasped, her face reflecting genuine horror. What are you doing here? I was invited, the woman replied coldly. A certain Iris Malloway sent me some very interesting materials. I was particularly interested in a recording of you and Bridget discussing how best to steal from the charity I run. What? Quinn recoiled as if she had been struck. We never. Don't, Quinn, Morin raised her hand, stopping the flood of excuses. The recording is crystal clear. You and Bridget plan to get her a job at my foundation for the sole purpose of gaining access to the finances and stealing money intended to help sick children. All eyes turned to Bridget, who had been standing quietly in the corner the whole time, hoping to go unnoticed. Now she cowered under the barrage of condemning glances. It was just talk, she protested weakly. We never actually intended to. Save your explanations for the court, Maureen cut her off. I've already contacted our lawyers. They'll be very interested in these recordings. Quinn paled even more if that was possible. She glanced around the room full of people who had been her allies until recently, but now looked at her with condemnation and fear. Even Noah, who had always been on her side, now stood next to me, his face a mixture of shock and disgust. You all, Quinn began, but suddenly fell silent, her face contorted as if in intense pain. She clutched her chest, took an unsteady step forward, and began to sink to the floor. Quinn! Noah rushed to her, catching her. Despite everything he had learned, she was still his wife, and his instinct was to protect her. What's wrong with you? I can't breathe, she whispered, her eyes rolling back and her body going limp in his arms. She needs a doctor, Noah exclaimed, lowering Quinn onto the sofa. She's unconscious. Officer Baker quickly grabbed his radio and called for an ambulance. Pearl leaned over Quinn, checking her pulse. She has a pulse, but it's weak and irregular, she reported. It looks like a panic attack or a nervous breakdown. Or a skilled simulation, Laura muttered, but loud enough for everyone to hear. She always did this when she found herself in a hopeless situation. It was her signature move as a child. Are you saying your daughter is faking it? Officer Baker frowned. I'm not saying she's faking it, Laura shrugged. It's just how her body reacts to stress, especially when she's cornered and realizes she's lost. Mom, Reed protested, how can you say that? Your daughter is unconscious. You shut up, Laura snapped. Better to lose consciousness than go to prison for theft and fraud. Reed turned pale and backed away. I watched the scene with mixed feelings. On the one hand, I didn't want Quinn to be harmed. On the other hand, it was hard not to notice the irony that the woman who had planned to send me to a nursing home because of my poor health was now lying unconscious herself. An ambulance arrived with 2 medics carrying a stretcher and equipment. They examined Quinn, took her blood pressure and pulse, and put an oxygen mask on her. Acute panic attack, one of the medics said. We're taking her to the hospital for observation. They transferred Quinn to the stretcher and began to carry her out of the house. Noah followed them, giving me an uncertain look. Go, I nodded. She's still your wife. He nodded gratefully and followed the medics out. After Quinn was taken away, a strange silence fell over the living room. The guests, Sharon's few friends who had arrived before the scandal broke and had become unwitting witnesses to the collapse of the Ottavy family, began to whisper among themselves, clearly unsure of how to react to what had happened. Sharon approached me, her face pale but determined. Mrs. Malloway, she began quietly, I want you to know that I never approved of Quinn's plans for you and your home. Yes, I gave her legal advice, but I didn't know what it was for. Really? I raised an eyebrow. What about the recording where you discuss how best to draw up the document so that I never get out of the nursing home? Sharon paled even more. I don't remember that conversation. Perhaps your memory is failing you. I smiled coldly. But my phone remembers everything perfectly. Sharon backed away, her face a mixture of shame and fear. She returned to her husband, who put his arm around her shoulders in a protective gesture. Reed was the next to try to justify himself. He approached me, holding his hands out in a conciliatory gesture. Mrs. Malloway, he began, his voice sounding unnaturally soft. I want to explain about that box. It really was a misunderstanding. Quinn told me you wanted to get rid of some old things and suggested I take something as a memento. I didn't know the box meant so much to you. And the fact that you sold it to an antique shop for $400, was that a misunderstanding too? I asked, watching his face change color. Well, he faltered, clearly not expecting me to know about it. I needed the money, temporary difficulties. Spare me the explanations. I raised my hand. I'll return the box. I have a photo of the ad and the store's address. And I'm afraid we have nothing more to discuss. Reed backed away, his attempt at justification having failed. Laura held out longer than the others. She walked over to the sofa where Quinn had been lying and sat down, carefully smoothing her skirt. Her face looked tired and aged. You know, Iris, she said, without looking at me, I always knew that Quinn was ambitious, but I never thought she was capable of going this far. Really? I sat down next to her. What about your email where you advise her to get rid of the old woman and secure the rights to the property? Laura sighed. I won't deny that I wrote those words, but believe me, I meant legal means. Perhaps persuading you to move in with other relatives or to a more comfortable place. But not what Quinn had planned. I looked at her for a long time, trying to figure out if she was telling the truth. But Laura's face was impenetrable, like a mask. Well, I finally said, it doesn't matter now. What matters is what Quinn did, not what you meant. Laura nodded, accepting this as a given. What are you going to do next? She asked. Legally, I mean. I haven't decided yet, I answered honestly. Part of me wants Quinn to take full responsibility for her actions. Another part thinks about Noah and how this will affect him. He's a good boy, Laura said unexpectedly softly. Too good for Quinn. I've always known that, but she's my daughter, and I wanted a better life for her. At the expense of other people's lives? Laura lowered her eyes. I'm not proud of it, Iris, if that means anything. After the last guests and Quinn's relatives had left, and Officer Baker had gone, Promising to return tomorrow for an official statement, Pearl and I were left alone in the living room, surrounded by half-eaten snacks and half-drunk drinks. What a party, Pearl muttered, sinking into an armchair. It's not every day you see an entire family of schemers fall apart. Yes, I smiled weakly, feeling suddenly tired. You know what's strange? I don't feel triumphant, only relief and sadness. Why sadness? Pearl asked in surprise. You exposed their plan, protected your home and your life. They got what they deserved. Yes, but at what cost? I shook my head. Noah lost his wife, or at least the illusion that he had a loving wife. This house, which was filled with love when Hugh and I lived here, is now filled with betrayal and bitterness. Pearl nodded thoughtfully. I understand, but remember, you didn't choose this path. They forced it on you with their actions. I know, I sighed. I just imagined that in my old age I would live in a house full of the laughter of grandchildren, not scandals and police. We were silent for a while. Then Pearl got up. Let's go to the kitchen and make some tea, she suggested. After events like this, you need something calming. We went to the kitchen, which, unlike the living room, had not been affected by the chaos of the party. Here, the atmosphere of a normal home still prevailed, where people cook, drink tea, and talk about everyday things. While the kettle was boiling, I looked out the window at the dark garden, lit only by a street lamp. For so many years, this house had been the center of my life, the place where Hugh and I raised Noah, where we were happy. And now it had become a battlefield, a place of intrigue and betrayal. What are you thinking about? Asked Pearl, taking cups out of the cupboard. That it's never too late to start over, I replied after a pause. Even when you're over 70, Pearl smiled, her eyes flashing with understanding. That's true, she agreed. It's never too late. At that moment, the front door opened and Noah entered the house. He looked exhausted, his eyes red and his face gaunt. How's Quinn? I asked when he appeared in the kitchen. Stable, he said, slumping heavily into a chair. The doctors say it was a severe panic attack. They're keeping her overnight for observation. Are you okay? I put my hand on his shoulder. He looked up at me, his eyes full of pain. No, Mom, I'm not okay. I just found out that the woman I loved was planning to put you in a nursing home and steal your house. How could I be okay? I didn't know how to respond. Instead, I just hugged him, feeling his shoulders shake. He wasn't crying, but he was close. She didn't even ask about you, he said quietly after a while. At the hospital. The first thing she said when she came to was, Did they arrest me? What happened to the house? Pearl quietly placed a cup of tea in front of him. That says a lot about her priorities, she remarked. Yes, Noah agreed bitterly. Now I see what was always most important to her. We sat in the kitchen drinking tea and talking about the future, uncertain, but free from intrigue and lies. About Noah probably filing for divorce. About me possibly having to testify against Quinn. About how to rebuild our relationship with Noah after everything that had happened. And somewhere in the city, in a hospital room, Quinn lay alone, coming to after fainting and realizing that her carefully constructed plan had finally collapsed, burying all her hopes for wealth and a comfortable life at someone else's expense under its rubble. The morning after the party was quiet and gray. Light rain tapped on the window pane as if trying to wash away the events of the previous day. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea, watching the raindrops run down the glass and thinking about how quickly life can change. Just yesterday, I was a prisoner in my own home with a daughter-in-law planning to send me to a nursing home. Today, I am once again the master of my own destiny, but the price of this freedom was the destruction of my son's world. Noah came down to the kitchen around 9. He looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept at all. Good morning, Mom, he said, pouring himself some coffee. Good morning, son. How are you? He shrugged, avoiding my gaze. I don't know. Everything's a blur. I didn't sleep all night, just thought. I waited silently for him to continue. Noah stared into his cup for a long time, as if trying to find answers to unspoken questions. I called the hospital, he finally said. Quinn was discharged this morning. Physically, she's fine. Are you going to pick her up? Noah looked up, and I saw a determination in his eyes that hadn't been there before. No, Reed will pick her up. I, I can't see her right now, Mom. I understand, I said, gently touching his hand. You need time. It's not about time. Noah shook his head. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust her again or look at her and not see all of it. Plots against you, lies, manipulation. He took a sip of coffee and grimaced as if it were bitter. I'm not even sure she ever loved me. Love comes in many forms, I said softly. Some people love people. Some love what people can give them. Yes, Noah smiled bitterly. And now I know which category Quinn falls into. The doorbell rang and I went to answer it. Officer Baker was standing on the doorstep as he had promised yesterday. Good morning, Mrs. Malloway, he greeted me. I'm here to take your official statement about yesterday's incident. I invited him into the living room, which still bore traces of the failed party, uneaten snacks, half-finished drinks, scattered napkins. Noah and I had been too exhausted yesterday to clean up. I spent the next hour telling Officer Baker everything from the beginning. How Quinn and Noah moved in with me after Hugh's death. How Quinn gradually began to take control of the house. How I overheard their plans and began to gather evidence. The officer wrote everything down in his notebook, occasionally asking clarifying questions. These are serious allegations, Mrs. Malloway, he said when he finished writing. Unlawful imprisonment, attempted fraud, possibly even conspiracy to commit unlawful acts. Are you prepared to press formal charges against your sister-in-law? I thought about it. Part of me craved justice, wanted Quinn to be held fully accountable for her actions. But another part thought about Noah and what he would have to go through if the case went to trial. I would like to consult with a lawyer before making a decision, I finally replied. Can we postpone this for a few days? Of course, Officer Baker nodded. You have every right to seek legal advice. But keep in mind that the longer you wait, the more difficult it will be to gather evidence. I have all the evidence I need, I said, showing him my phone. Recordings of conversations, photos, screenshots of correspondence. Everything is also saved in cloud storage, in case something happens to my phone. Officer Baker looked impressed. You are very thoughtful, Mrs. Malloway. 40 years as a court stenographer, I shrugged. I've learned to record everything important. After Officer Baker left, I returned to the kitchen, where Noah sat silently over his cold coffee. Are you going to press charges? He asked without looking up. I haven't decided yet, I answered honestly. I want to talk to a lawyer first, but it's important for me to know what you think about it. Noah looked up, and I saw the inner struggle in his eyes. I don't know, Mom. On the one hand, what Quinn did is unforgivable. She deserves to be punished. On the other hand, she's still my wife, and the thought of her going to prison? I understand, I said softly, and I won't make a decision without consulting you. This concerns both of us. Thank you, he smiled weakly. But one thing I'm sure of is that I'm filing for divorce. Regardless of how this whole thing with the charges ends up, I can't stay with someone who planned something like this against my mother. I nodded, feeling both relief and sadness. Relief that Noah had finally seen Quinn's true colors. Sadness that his marriage, however unhealthy it was, had come to an end. I'll support whatever decision you make, I said. And you can always stay here as long as you need to. Thank you, Mom. Noah looked grateful. But I think I need some time to be alone. To figure things out. Maybe rent an apartment for a while. Whatever you say, I didn't argue, even though part of me wanted to keep him close. But know that this house is always open to you. At that moment, the doorbell rang again. This time, Pearl was standing on the doorstep with a bag from the bakery and a determined look on her face. I brought croissants, she announced as she entered. And news. Reed just picked Quinn up from the hospital. They're headed to his place, not here. How do you know? I asked, surprised. I still have connections in the police force, Pearl winked. Plus, I happened to be driving past the hospital just as they were being discharged. By chance, I raised an eyebrow. Absolutely by chance, Pearl smiled innocently. Just like the fact that I happened to overhear them talking about Quinn needing to pick up her things from the house. Is she coming here? Noah tensed. From what I heard, yes, but not today. Reed was convincing her to wait until things calmed down. Pearl placed the croissants on a plate. So you have time to prepare. Prepare for what? Noah asked. She has a right to pick up her things. Yes, but she has no right to take anything beyond that, Pearl remarked. And given her tendencies, I would check all your valuables before she arrives. I nodded, understanding what Pearl was talking about. Quinn wasn't the type to leave empty-handed. We need to make an inventory of all the valuable items in the house, I said, and perhaps temporarily move the most important ones to a safe place. I can help, Pearl offered. I have a safe deposit box at the bank, and I'd be happy to store something for you there until everything is settled. Thank you, I squeezed her hand. You're a true friend. The next few days passed in a strange state of limbo. Noah started looking for an apartment, browsing online listings and meeting with realtors. I contacted a lawyer, Mr. Pratt, to discuss the possible legal consequences of pressing charges against Quinn. The case looks pretty clear-cut in your favor, Iris, Mr. Pratt said after reviewing the evidence I had gathered. The recorded conversations, the correspondence, the witness statements, it all paints a compelling picture of a deliberate plan to deprive you of your property and your freedom. What will she face if I press charges? I asked. Depending on the specific charges, anything from a fine and probation to actual jail time. Unlawful imprisonment is a serious crime, especially when it involves an elderly person. I thought about it. The idea of Quinn going to prison did not appeal to me. Not because I had forgiven her, but because it would mean even more suffering for Noah. Are there other options? Asked Noah, who was present during the conversation. Something that wouldn't result in jail time, but would ensure that Quinn couldn't hurt Mom again? Mr. Pratt thought for a moment. We could consider a pretrial agreement. Iris agrees not to press criminal charges in exchange for certain conditions. For example, a restraining order that would prevent Quinn from approaching your home in Iris. Plus, possibly financial compensation for emotional distress and the return of all misappropriated items. That sounds reasonable, I nodded. I don't want revenge. I want peace and security. Then I will contact Mrs. Ottovie Malloway's lawyer and propose to start negotiations, Mr. Pratt said. But be prepared for the possibility that she may not agree to the terms. In that case, we will have to go to court. I understand, I nodded. Do what you think is best. After the lawyer left, Noah and I sat in the living room thinking about what we had heard. I could see that my son was still struggling with conflicting emotions. Are you sure you don't want to press charges? He finally asked. After everything she planned to do? Criminal prosecution won't give me peace of mind, I replied. But a restraining order that keeps her away from the house will give me a sense of security. What about justice? Justice, I pondered. You know, when I was your age, I also believed in absolute justice, that every crime should be punished, every injustice corrected. But years in court have shown me a different picture. Sometimes the pursuit of justice at any cost brings more pain than healing. Noah was silent, pondering my words. Then he got up and walked over to the window, looking out at the street. I filed for divorce this morning, he said without turning around. While you were at the lawyer's. Oh, Noah. I walked over to him and put my hand on his shoulder. Are you sure you're ready for this? Yes. He nodded, still looking out the window. I've thought about it for a long time. Even if Quinn hadn't planned what she planned against you, our marriage was still built on lies. She didn't marry me for love, but for convenience. How can I go on living with that knowledge? I hugged him, feeling his shoulders shake. Noah wasn't crying, but I knew a storm of emotions was raging inside him. You deserve true love, son, I said quietly. Someone who will appreciate you for who you are, not for what you can give. Thank you, Mom. He turned and hugged me back. And I'm sorry for not seeing what was happening, for letting Quinn treat you that way. It's not your fault. I stroked his back like I used to when he was a child. You just loved her and trusted her. There's no crime in that. A week after the incident in the storage room, Quinn finally showed up at the house to collect her things. She was accompanied by Reed and a man in a formal suit, probably a lawyer. By that time, Noah had already found an apartment and moved in, not wanting to meet Quinn. I watched from my bedroom window as they entered the house. Quinn looked pale and gaunt, but there was still determination in her gait. She didn't even glance up at me, pretending I didn't exist. Pearl, who had come especially to be with me that day, put her hand on my shoulder. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Yes," I nodded. "It's just strange to see her again after everything." "Do you want me to go downstairs and make sure she doesn't take anything but her belongings?" "No, don't worry." I shook my head. "Mr. Pratt is already there with a list of what she's allowed to take, and there are cameras installed in the house in case she tries to steal anything." Pearl raised her eyebrows in surprise. "Cameras? When did you have time to install them?" "Yesterday," I smiled weakly. Noah insisted. He said it would put both of us at ease. "Smart boy," Pearl nodded. "He's always been quick-witted." We sat in my bedroom, drinking tea and talking quietly while Quinn packed her things downstairs. I deliberately avoided meeting her, not wanting another confrontation. Everything had already been said and done. 2 hours later, Reed's car drove away, loaded with boxes of Quinn's belongings. I watched them disappear around the corner and felt a strange sense of relief. It was as if a heavy stone that had been weighing on my chest for the past few years had finally been lifted. "Well, that's it," said Pearl, standing next to me at the window. "She's gone." "Yes," I nodded. "And now I have to decide what to do with my life. Do you have any ideas?" "A few," I smiled. "I'm thinking about going back to work. Not full-time, of course, but maybe mentoring novice stenographers or even teaching. Legal stenography is a dying art, and young people have a lot to learn from dinosaurs like me." "Great idea," Pearl exclaimed. "You've always been the best at what you do." "And I'm also thinking about traveling," I continued. "I've always wanted to see Rome, Paris, London. Hugh promised to take me to Europe when he retired, but he didn't make it. So why not go now?" Pearl suggested. "You're free, healthy, and full of energy. What's stopping you?" "Noah," I admitted. "I'm worried about him. After everything that's happened." "Noah is a grown man, Iris. He'll be fine. And maybe he needs some space to figure things out for himself, too." I thought about her words. Maybe Pearl was right. Maybe Noah and I both needed some time apart to heal our wounds and start over. "You know," I said after a pause, "maybe you're right. Maybe now is the time to start living for myself." "Exactly." Pearl squeezed my hand. "And if you're looking for a travel companion, I'm always up for it. I've always wanted to see the Colosseum." I laughed, feeling the weight of the last few years begin to lift. "That would be wonderful." A month after the incident in the storage room, I was standing at Logan Airport holding a ticket to Rome. Pearl had already passed through security and was waiting for me on the other side. Noah had come to see us off and was now standing next to me, helping with the luggage. "Are you sure you want to do this?" he asked, looking at me with concern. "2 weeks in a foreign country?" "Absolutely sure," I smiled. "Don't worry so much, son. Pearl and I will be fine, and I'll call every day." "Promise?" "I promise." I hugged him. "And you promise to take care of yourself while I'm gone, and don't let Quinn manipulate you again." "Don't worry about that." Noah shook his head. "I've learned my lesson. Besides, her lawyer contacted me yesterday. She agreed to the terms of the pretrial settlement. No contact with you or me, return of all the valuables she took, and compensation for emotional distress." "That's good news," I nodded. "So everything should be settled by the time I get back." "Yes." Noah looked relieved. "And I think it's for the best. For all of us." Our flight was called, and it was time to say goodbye. I hugged my son tightly once more, my heart aching at the thought of parting. But at the same time, I knew it was necessary. We both needed space to heal and move on. "I love you, Mom," Noah said, letting go of me. "Be careful out there." "I love you too," I smiled through my tears. "See you in 2 weeks." I went through security and joined Pearl, who was waiting impatiently for me. Together we headed for the boarding gate, two elderly women ready for adventure. "So, are you ready for the next chapter of your life?" Pearl asked as we took our seats on the plane. "More than ready," I nodded, looking out the window at Boston spreading out below. "You know, I thought that at my age life was already written, that all that was left was to reread the previous chapters, remembering the past. But it turns out that you can start a whole new story, even when you're over 70. "That's right." Pearl squeezed my hand. "And this story will be no less exciting than the previous ones." When the plane took off, I felt a strange sense of liberation. It was as if, along with Salem and my home, I was leaving behind all the hardships and disappointments of recent years. Ahead of me lay a new world, new experiences, new opportunities, and I was ready to meet them with an open heart and a clear mind. Because despite my age and the difficulties I had experienced, I remained who I had always been, a strong and independent woman who did not allow life's adversities to break her spirit.